Egypt has a culture stretching back thousands of years. It was the home of the pyramids and the pharaohs, and it was part of the Roman Empire until a new powerful faith emerged from Arabia. These warriors would conquer the land and usher in a new chapter in this ancient country's history. Today we will learn about the Arab Conquest of Egypt. This is Knowledge Voyage. Today, Egypt is thought of as the cultural centre of the Arabic-speaking world, and the Islamic University at Al-Azhar is considered a leading authority in Sunni Muslim theology. But it wasn't always that way. In fact, right up until the 1400s, Egypt had a Christian majority, and Greek, not Arabic, was the language of administration, whilst the normal people spoke Coptic. So, what made Egypt go from a Greek Christian majority state to an Arabic-speaking Muslim majority state? The answer lies in a trip to Jerusalem. According to tradition, a Muslim named Amir al-Sas was in Jerusalem when he made friends with an Egyptian Coptic Christian who was there on pilgrimage. Amir al-Sas saved his life when a snake threatened to bite him, and in gratitude, the Christian invited his new Muslim friend to visit him in Egypt. Amir al-Sas was overcome with the wealth and grandeur of Egypt, and its bustling markets, huge ports, massive buildings, and pharaonic pyramids and ruins. Al-Sas returned to his fellow Arabs with tales of the wealth to be had in Egypt, and the Arabs, freshly confident from their conquest of neighbouring Palestine and Syria, were eager for more. The Arabs could not have picked a better moment to strike for two reasons. Firstly, Egypt was torn apart by sectarian feuds and divisions. The rival camps of Christians were divided between Monophysites and Diophysites. The Monophysites held Jesus only had a divine nature, whilst Diophysites held he had both a divine and a human nature. Whilst the majority of the Egyptian population in the countryside and frontier monasteries held to the Monophysite variety, the powerful Byzantine rulers of Egypt preferred the Diophysite variety. This had been made worse by a brief period of Persian occupation of Egypt during their war with Byzantium. The Zoroastrian Persians had tolerated the Monophysite faith of the majority, but when they withdrew as part of a peace agreement, the Byzantine authorities reimposed harsh sectarian persecution. As a result, the Byzantine authorities appointed church leaders in the major cities who had little popular support. As well as the internal divisions between Christians, there was a second reason the Arabs picked the ideal moment to strike, and that reason was the Justinian plague. In the late 6th century, a version of the bubonic plague swept the Byzantine Empire. It massively depopulated the empire, especially depriving it of fighting-age men to patrol the frontiers and man the garrisons. The Arabs, as a nomadic people far from the infectious population centres, had been largely unaffected, and if they struck now, they'd be fighting against a depopulated enemy. But the Arab attack on Egypt was risky. The Sinai Peninsula the Muslim Arab armies would have to cross was barren and desolate, and the Arab forces would be far from help if they ran into trouble. But the Caliph felt an attack could succeed, and who else to lead it but Amir al-Sas? The first attack was at Fayoum, and this alarmed the Byzantine defenders greatly. Whilst Arabs had done smash-grab raids at the edge of the Sinai before, Fayoum lay deep in the Nile region, and suggested maybe this time this Arab attack was very different. But the key clash was at the fortress of Babylon. Babylon, not to be confused with the Iraqi city of the same name, was a key part of Egypt's defence network, and if it fell, all of Egypt would be open to the Arabs. But once again, luck was with the Arabs. Byzantine Emperor Heraclius had just died. This would plunge the Byzantine capital Constantinople into infighting to find a successor, which meant something even more serious for the troops in Egypt. It meant there would be no relief forces sent to relieve the breaking garrison at Babylon, and as Babylon fell, the Arabs knew nothing could stop them. And if the Byzantine soldiers defending Egypt thought the locals would rally to help them against the Arabs, they were very wrong. In fact, the local Monophysite Christians sided with the Arabs, seeing them as a force that could rid them of their opponents in the rival Byzantine-backed Diophysite sect. And with the defeat of the army, Byzantine rule in Egypt quickly collapsed. Since the time of the pharaohs, the army was highly centralised. There were no local warlords with independent power bases. Add to this, there were no mountains, forests or jungles in Egypt for resistance fighters to hide in. It meant no resistance could be launched once the conquest was complete. The Caliph decided not to set up the Muslim Arab conqueror's capital at Alexandria. Instead, a new city was built further south. The Arabs call the city Al-Qahira, which means the victorious. In English, Al-Qahira is known as Cairo. In the years that followed, the Arab conquerors made little effort to encourage further Arab immigration into Egypt, so as not to spread the spoils of conquest too thin. And this meant Egypt was dominated by a small Arabic-speaking elite and a Christian majority. Now Egypt was orientated not towards Constantinople and the Mediterranean, but towards Mecca and Medina. With Egypt secure, the Arabs were set to gradually Islamize and Arabize Egyptian culture over the centuries, and from Egypt they would launch further conquests that would take them to the very door of Europe. Thanks for watching everyone, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you.